This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
From our virtual studios in Darmstadt, Germany.
And of course, Camarillo, California.
It is time once again for the most amazing geeky marketing show of all time, where we collect all the marketing geeks into one place and show them off like a geek fashion show for your enjoyment.
For your viewing pleasure. And today we have an incredible episode. We are bringing on a very, very special guest that is going to get into some pretty advanced online marketing strategies and tactics. And I think for all the true geeks in our audience, you are going to absolutely love this episode.
This is one of the more advanced people that we've had on our show regarding marketing. In fact, so advanced that we may just drop out completely and just let him take over the entire show. In fact, he may just interview us on this particular show.
That's right. In fact, he is the only person that has ever beaten artificial intelligence at chess. And that is very exciting to have him on the show. But here we go with the Marketing Geeks.
Hello, everybody. We have quite a show for you. But before we do, we're going to pay some bills. So stand by.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love with no artificial sweeteners and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
K-pop Demon Hunters, Haja Boys breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
All right. And we're back. So our guest is Richard C. Wilson. And Richard C. Wilson, he helps implement discrete full balance sheet family office solutions for 100 million plus net worth families through his Billionaire Advisors LLC.
Love that name.
That's a great name. He's also the founder of the Family Office Club, the largest membership-based family office association that can be found at familyoffices.com with over 1,750 registered family office members and 25 live events per year. I want to find out all about this. You're a public speaker. You've had conferences in 17 countries. I don't know if the Netherlands has been on that list, but you should look at it. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce the great Richard Wilson. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, guys.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about a little bit of background about what you do, and because this is all very unique. So I'd like to find out a little bit more about you've been doing this a while. We were speaking a little bit before the show started. So why don't you give us a little bit about your bio and kind of where you're coming from?
Sure. Yeah. So I started 12 years ago. The family office space has really exploded since then. Nobody knew what it was back then. Now, only a percentage of even investment professionals know what it is, yet it's a big industry nowadays. There's well over 10,000 family offices globally. And a family office is a ultra wealthy wealth solution. It could be a whole team serving one person worth a couple $100 million, or it could be a wealth organization serving dozens of people worth 20 million to 50 million each, per se. And so what we do is we have a platform called the Family Office Club, and it's a community. We have 25 live events per year. And over the last 12 years, we've put out a lot of information in the space, and we're the number one thought leader. So besides having familyoffices.com, I've published 13 books and produced 1,800 videos. I've done 114 of our own events, and I've spoken at about 150 of other people's events. And it's just been a lot of funnel building and content building and just documenting the journey, as Gary Vee would say.
Yeah. So you're going after the top net worth individuals in the world, I'll say, or at least in the country. So you have a very specific niche that you're chasing. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you've built a marketing funnel around going after family offices, because that is such like a high net worth niche, and I know there's a lot of competition in that area. So can you talk a little bit about like what distinguishes you from the other people that are doing the same thing?
Yeah, the first thing that distinguishes me is I take a really long-term view. So I do things that would make no sense at all if you're going to be retiring in 7 to 10 years, like some of my competition might be. I also just give away a lot more, and I just have kind of a, look at all my top 3-5 competitors combined and give away more than they do in combination. And that recipe has worked well for me. I also keep on finding niches within niches. So we started by saying, hey, I want to be the #1 family office thought leader, whatever that means. We got to that, or the most visited website, the family office podcast, et cetera. And they said, well, it's more valuable to go after these groups called single family offices. They're more secretive, more private. So we started doing an annual event on that, bought singlefamilyoffices.com, published the first book with the word single family office in the title of it. As that got popular, we realized the niche within the niche within the niche is people starting a family office. They don't have any gatekeepers. They don't know anything yet. They need tons of help. So we wrote a book called How to Start a Family Office. Not a rocket scientist type name, but if you search for how to do that online, only one person has taken the time to put together a book on that topic. And so it's competitive, but to put in a decade of focused energy, producing lots of helpful content, the competition gets whittled down pretty quickly, and there's nobody else playing that game.
Just for the uninitiative, because there's some people that don't understand what a family office is. Can you break down the definition of that?
Yeah. So basically, if you're worth $100,000, your complexity is low. And if you make a mistake, maybe it costs you $1,000. If you're worth $100 million, highly complex arrangements all around you. Everybody wants access to your time, lots of opportunities to chase. And if you make a mistake, it might cost you $400,000 or $1 million. So the mistakes get more expensive, and they're more likely to happen because you've got so much going on and you have a lot of opportunities to seize. So the wealthier you get, the more you need a team around you, a holistic solution. There's no way that somebody worth $400 million is supposed to remember all the advice from their CPA and then 3 months later tell that to their wealth manager and then tell that to their insurance agent. Like, it'd just be insane to try to do that. So the wealthier you are, the more holistic and 360 you need the balance sheet to be managed for yourself.
Yeah. Now, I just want to say I love that you tackled the niche of teaching others how to start family offices, because that's tackling this from a totally different area than most people would think. And yet it still positions you as like a thought leader and as a major influencer in the industry, because most people, they're going to look at like, oh, this is the guy that teaches people how to start family offices, and it's going to establish your brand and your credibility on a super high level. So I love that strategy. It looks like you're pretty well. I mean, I haven't done a ton of research on you, but it looks like you're probably pretty well SEO'd. You own URLs like familyoffices.com. You said you also, what was the other one you just bought?
Capital raising. We have a capitalraising.com, privateequity.com.
So did you have to buy those from other users, a lot of those, or were you able to get those? Yeah.
I bought them all premium. Yep.
I had a feeling. What kind of price tag were on some of those?
I got lucky on familyoffices.com. I got it for $10K and I wouldn't sell it for $200 now. And I got privateequity.com for $130K. Capitalraising.com was $10K. So I picked up a few at the 5 and 10K, 15K range, and just paid.
But those are powerful URLs though, and they're going to work well for SEO too. So, another thing I just wanted to ask you. So with the family office niche industry, a lot of clients, I'm sure that when they're worth that much money, there's an issue of trust, right? So what have you done that helps to bridge that gap between like someone that's trying to take advantage of them and someone that they can trust? How do you establish that level of trust with these kind of clients?
Yeah, I de-risk them reaching out to me and reverse the flow of me trying to reach out to an ultra wealthy client. I reverse it and have them reach out to me. So when they look for a solution for a headache they have on Amazon, on Google, on YouTube, etc., they find me, and they find me consistently. So I can be top of mind and most referred, etc. And people think you can only get business in this industry through referrals. So they don't even try to do what I'm doing. But the books for any high-end sale, if you're selling a yacht, if you're selling $10 million houses, etc., and you want to earn those types of clientele, then you need to think about what's going on in their brains, what's the conversation in their head, what's their headaches, their pain points, and what are they literally searching into search engines so that they can find you over and over again. Where do they congregate? What authors do they read? What podcasts do they listen to? And the fourth layer deep that I didn't get to after How to Start a Family Office was my most recent book called Centimillionaire, which means 100 million plus net worth, kind of like billionaire means billion plus. But the latest book is called Centimillionaire Migraines. And it's just talking about the 6 top headaches of $100 million families. And I give them Excedrin for each of those in a $3 book. And I give away that book in PDF on centimillionaires.com. And that type of stuff works because no one else is talking just to them. Like if you own a 100-foot super yacht, and there's a report, a white paper on managing your super yacht in Singapore, and you live in Singapore and you have a 100-foot super yacht, like you're going to read that white paper because it was written just for you, and nothing else on planet Earth is written just for you.
Yeah. To get really deep in the niches.
So did you what was the inspiration to kind of build this type of empire? Like where did you get the idea to help people manage their money on this level, and especially go for such a high level type of client?
I'd started businesses my whole life. I'd probably started 4 or 5, before I got out of high school, and I had a decently successful one in college. And then, I guess I was just smart enough to realize I was getting lucky when I stumbled on the family office space and started studying it and seeing that there was no expert in it, and just kind of smacked me that there's, Kramer and Susie Orman and all these experts on the stock market, and even on penny stocks, there's like all these people fighting for turf. But then, and I looked for help on information on family offices. Nobody was being helpful to me. I was like, how is this possible? These are the wealthiest people on planet Earth. Nowadays there's a lot more competition, but this was, 12 years ago. And so that was a big motivation. And then I remember in college reading a book by Jeffrey Gitomer, a sales trainer, and he said that he'll give away his number one secret in all of his books because he knows nobody will follow it. And he said, if you give away information to your target audience once a week, and you do that and you put it in front of people that could say yes to you, and you add value to them, you'll be a local expert in 1 or 2 years. You'll be a regional expert in 3 or 4 years, and you'll be a global expert in 7 years. And I remember looking up and saying, I'm going to be the son of a bitch that does it, because he just told me I'm not going to do it. And that's his best secret. And, he grew his business to big heights. And so I was able to be on his podcast recently and thanked him for that. And I didn't even know what I was going to apply that to when I read it, but it really stuck out in my mind. And so I just ended up applying that to the family office space.
It's almost counterintuitive, but I mean, I completely agree with that point though. The more information you share, even if you give away your best stuff, like people still, for the most part, they don't want to execute that information on their own. Like even in marketing, I mean, I could tell somebody exactly what I'm going to do for them, and still they're probably going to hire me to do it instead of trying to figure it out on their own. Or they might make an effort to try to figure it out on their own, but they'll give up after 10 minutes of effort. So it's like a counterintuitive point, but it's so very true. Now I had another question for you, because I imagine getting into this like in the beginning. I don't know if you had a ton of resources in the beginning when you're coming after this, or did you have to employ like some level of like guerrilla marketing in the beginning to break into this, or was it because that? I want to hear a little bit about like what were you doing back then when you were probably out budgeted by an enormous amount. So what were like the guerrilla tactics that you employed?
And also how did you build authority in an area where you had none, and you were asking people to trust you with their finances?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I had no resources. So I was in a studio basement part of a Victorian house in Harvard Square with $800 in my bank account. And my rent was $1,000 a month when I started the business in 2007, right when the markets went down, and I'm in the investment industry. And I just got started by writing every day on the space and blogging on it. And my first start was looking at the 500 keywords people search for most on family offices and capital raising and hedge funds. And I wrote 2 blog posts on every single one of those 500 keywords and I'd put it out on eZine Articles and all those old school article syndication sites that no one cares to put stuff out on these days. And I put out YouTube videos. And then because of that, almost on accident, I got on the front page of the Boston Globe, started getting interviewed on radio stations and different newspapers. And then that got me speaking engagements, a book deal with Wiley. And at age 26, I'd never spoken before publicly. And I was on the same stage as the prime minister of Turkey, and they flew me to Belgium to speak on hedge funds. And so awesome. I was like, I'm sure when I showed up, they're like, who's this kid? Like, who invited this Richard guy? And but I realized then that the only reason they invited me is I was positioned as having the most specialized knowledge on a topic they needed. So they just saw, oh, this guy's written 400 posts, probably didn't look at my picture to see how old I was. And they flew me over to Europe and to speak. And then, I spoke 100 more times in 14 countries, using
so how was that? How was that for you? Like, did you feel like a little bit like you didn't belong there when you're with this prime minister of Turkey at age 26? I thought I was going to
throw up on myself. I was, I was like super nervous. I couldn't eat at all. And, something like clicked though, when that started happening. I said, well, I'm just going to double down. And that's when I bought familyoffices.com, started writing daily, got the book deal with Wiley, and just said, okay, there's something really here.
So when you say write daily, like how you said you wrote like over 400 articles. So did you like an article a day and for like a year straight? I mean, how often when you say that, like how often were you actually publishing articles?
For about 6 or 9 months, it was just once a week, every once in a while, twice. And I started getting 100 hits, 300 hits a day. A random person would call me and I'd get all excited, like, whoa, someone called me, And then I started saying, okay, well, 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And we started getting 1,000 hits a day. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to start doing this once a business day. And at that point, my then boss, when I was raising capital, said, hey, you got to delete this website because newspapers and media are calling and, this is a distraction from your job. And so I quit the job. And before I could get hired somewhere else, I was making more money doing it full time. And the best story is that I was in a burrito shop when we had launched our first certification program. So we have certifications in capital raising and family offices, et cetera. And I pushed send on the email blast. It was just email opt-ins from my blog at the time. And I remember refreshing and seeing 7,000, 15,000, and we brought in $35,000. And I was sitting there, in this greasy burrito shop. And I realized if I could bring in 35K in a day, that I had something, that could grow.
Okay, I got a question for you. Do you still eat burritos in that greasy burrito shop? But now that you have the money, you just eat more?
When I go back to Boston, I do make a point of going there just about every time. It's where I met my wife. I lived there for 3 or 4 years. I like Boston. And so, it's funny to look back at that for sure.
Interesting.
So what would you like? How would you recommend somebody who is just starting out and wanted to build kind of their own little empire, if you will? Like say you had two guys who had kind of an up and coming podcast show, and they were doing really well. And, yeah,
and we get reached out to on LinkedIn, and we all do dance. We'd dance and celebrate. And
so starting from scratch, like what would be kind of the process that you would walk someone through in developing their own niche and becoming profitable like you have?
Well, the most important would be to get the most dramatic podcast music possible for the start of your podcast, like you have. It would, I think
have awesome guests.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the two most important things would be to have the mindset of not going to a lake and trying to spear a fish, but looking at the lake, what the other hunters are doing, where the water's flowing, where there's a congregation of fish, where there's the best quality fish, and then figuring out where the waterfall is, where there might be a grizzly bear where the fish are just jumping into their mouth, and figure out how to be the grizzly bear instead of the random hunter like stabbing into the water and missing everything. You want the flow coming towards you. You don't want to be chasing the opportunities. You want opportunities smacking you so often you don't have time to respond to them. And I think that the other part of that is when you're looking at how to define yourself, your expertise, your brand, what you stand for, who you want to be attractive to, et cetera, I think you need to choose a sandbox where you only have 1 or 2 competitors, at least regionally or locally, or maybe even globally, you only have 1 to 4 competitors. If you have 0, you might starve, or maybe your market doesn't exist, or you're just so far ahead of the trend that it's going to take 15 years to get a real business out of it. But if you have a sandbox that is tight enough where maybe you're in a space of yachts or very high-end real estate, et cetera, but if you can carve out a unique part of that space so that for some subgroup you are the number one most relevant solution, because everyone else is messing around with, like when we did our hedge fund certification, there was an alternative investment certification, which includes private equity, venture capital, timber, commodities, not just hedge funds. And it was only, most of the certifications were for analysts. We said, well, if someone wants to only work in the hedge fund space, they could get our hedge fund certification. So we bought hedgefundcertification.com and we charged $500 to $1,000 to take the course. And we've had 2,500 people come through that program, because if all you want to do is work in hedge funds, we are the most logical solution. Like, why study timber and VC and private equity and all this other stuff that's made for analysts if you want to be a marketing guy in hedge funds? Doesn't make any sense, right? So you can apply that to any marketplace for attracting investors, consumer product people. You just look at a valuable niche, and then what are the top 3 most valuable sub niches, and you just own one of them. Because the person who's making money off the bigger sandbox, they can't now change their whole brand and say, oh no, let's cut off all of those revenue sources and only focus on the top thing. They can't do that anymore.
Yeah, we've talked about like the metaphor of the blue ocean and red ocean, and kind of getting into those blue ocean areas with the limited competition. We've never talked about the one with the grizzly and the fish, though, which I like that one better.
What did you set up your certification? Like, tell me about like the what people, like that whole process. Like, what kind of content was there? Number one, and number two, the certification itself. Like, how did you build authority around it? So if people had that certification, they're like, I'm certified by you, and made it like something that was powerful.
Sure. Yeah. At the beginning, it was, we were an early thought leader on family offices and hedge funds. So we had a good email subscriber list that respected the thought leadership we were putting out, which was just from speaking a lot at events and talking to a lot of family offices and hedge funds and knowing what was going on. So it was really the credibility around the thought leadership expertise. It's like someone having a popular podcast, and then because of that podcast, they trust that you know what you're talking about for certifying them in marketing, for example. Mm-hmm. But then we found that if you gain credibility, the more people that go through it, the more you have your own published book, the more that you have a study guide, videos, audio interviews, a syllabus, quotes from past participants, well-known blue chip firms like Thomson Reuters or Bloomberg or Goldman Sachs going through your program. So we learned a whole bunch of lessons like that over time, and ended up having 3 distinct areas of focus on the platforms so that it added credibility as well. So my wife runs translatorcertification.com. JJ on my team runs businesstraining.com. And then literally today, we're doing a switch over from financetraining.com, and it's going to be called investmentcertifications.com going forward, because we are more investment focused than we are finance technically.
You really don't mess around with your URLs. You really go for simplicity.
For sure. But I think importantly though, nobody wants to go to, certificationsonline.com and it's not specific to their industry. I found that people really care about, it's all about specialized knowledge. That's why you get a certificate. So, they want to hear from someone who's a marketing geek if they want to learn marketing.
Yeah, no, I see in your bio that you spent over $3 million in online advertising. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because I want to hear about like what did you learn, over spending $3 million in online advertising? Did you spend some of that on Facebook? Did you spend some of that on Google? Like, what are the networks you reached out on, and which ones did you find success on? Which ones did you not find success on? I'd just like to hear a little bit about your experience there, because obviously there's a lot of our listeners that are interested in like Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads and Google AdWords and Google Display Network and all that. So I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
Sure. We had a hard time measuring the ROI and getting a great ROI off of Twitter and YouTube. So we've only spent $50,000 just maybe under $100,000 on those 2 platforms. Although with YouTube, I do think there's potential there to dig back into it. Where we've had more success is we've spent $400,000 and change on both Facebook and LinkedIn. And those 2 areas we're spending just as much now as we are with Google AdWords. But over 12 years, for the first 7 years, we were just only doing Google AdWords. But now they're on pace equal with each other, and we'll spend anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 to up to $120,000, $140,000 in a month right now on the advertising, and we have many different campaigns going through there. And so, we've learned to watch inside of my own feeds for who's doing a good job, who's credible, who stands out. Because I don't click on a lot of stuff, but when someone gets my attention, I try to replicate that. So, like one example is Gary Vee has a lot of video content he's always putting out. And I realized he's kind of like, when I was growing up, Oprah had her own show and everyone knew who she was. And she had this massive exposure to America. And what I realized is like Gary Vee is like defining his exposure scope to a demographic he wants. And then he is, constantly streaming diverse content to that demographic. And it's like he has his own TV channel on TV, but better because he's only spending to go to people that he wants to access. So because of that, I created a retargeting campaign, and we've got 60 videos dripping on our past 180-day website visitors through Facebook. And we've gotten 46,000 clicks from that over the past 9 months or so.
Do you do retargeting through video? Like, when somebody watches a video, do you try to retarget like the 50%, 75% viewers, or what are you doing with the retargeting?
We retarget from email opt-ins, and we'll upload 86,000 emails, for example, we recently did. And then, 32,000 will match or something. We retarget from website visitors. But that's probably the number one thing I'm looking to implement going forward is showing like a whiteboard explainer video, to 20,000 people, and anyone who watched, more than 75%, like you just said, I want to put an offer in front of them. It seems to be something that a lot of the Facebook experts out there are pushing. And I implement all the advertising myself on my team. So I'm not like bleeding edge going to Facebook conferences. I'm just, figuring stuff out, trial and error, and then just listening to some Frank Kern, Dean Jackson type.
I love Frank Kern. I'm a big fan of his. Now I have one last question from me, and then I think sure I'll have another one. But I had a client. I do a lot of copywriting in my personal business, and I had a client that was running a family office type of business, and they were really going after like cryptocurrencies still with even these big markets. I was just curious to hear your take on crypto, and it's been surging this week. I don't know if you've been following it. But crypto's back for at least for a couple of days anyway. So I was just curious your take on that, or if you do offer crypto to your family office clients like that one was doing. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, we don't have any crypto offering ourselves. I think it's interesting from a capital raising perspective, watching that evolve. And I think some families view it as like, well, it could go to zero, or putter along at where it's at, but it definitely also could grow 10 times in value, right? So like the upside is more than the downside. So I think some family offices and ultra wealthy just take a flyer on it and allocate.
I would hope they're not putting a huge percentage in there, but like a small, it's worth maybe putting some in there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and finally, the question that I have is, if you are so let's say that you're building your authority, you're niching down. I mean, you're obviously doing all the right things, but what would be like at this point? Because I know that the nature of advertising is kind of changing. What do you find the trends are right now in digital advertising, and what is working best for people?
I think that one thing I've found is just that it's much more powerful if you can use, for certain types of businesses like mine, digital assets and digital media to be a conduit to create real world relationships. Because bigger ticket sales get done in person. Most people don't buy a Rolls Royce just via the internet. Most people are not buying the super yacht or hiring their wealth advisor and never meeting them in person. So if you have a ticket price and you're selling something that costs more than $3,000 to $5,000 or $7,000 to $10,000, it's probably going to be done in person or closed in person, or at least over the phone or via video. So the point of that is that we got a lot stronger when we had the paperback books out, not just a PDF book, even though it's the same exact content. We got stronger when we started speaking in person, and when we could host our own events, things got better. So really tangible, real world, and face-to-face meetings as a result of all the digital assets, I think is the 1-2 combo. And I really think that it takes, in competitive industries, not just expertise in family offices or expertise in capital raising or whatever, if you're listening to this, whatever your industry expertise is, but then also having marketing chops that are above and beyond what other people have. And it's the combination of two things like that creates the magic. And that's why I'm able to run circles around my older competitors because of those two skill sets being in the same brain is rare. Usually it's like the millennial telling the gray haired guy who's retiring in 10 years what they should do, and they think that won't work, or they implement 1/10 of it, or they mess up the implementation. So there's really not many people doing what's obvious to those who are under 40 years old, because everyone with the reins and who has control and has the budget to spend says, no, that's not how the industry works. You don't know any better. So I think that for a lot of people listening, it's figuring out the magical combination you can bring to your space to obliterate your dinosaur competitors.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I've worked with a lot of high-ticket sales companies, and all high-ticket sales close either they can't close over the phone, but they're either over the phone or in person. Like, they don't close over the internet. Not if you're talking like 50,000 plus, maybe even 20,000 plus. So yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah.
Great. Sure. And anything else you want to add before you go? Because I know you're up against some time here, but what would you say is the best advice you can give anybody who's just starting out in their marketing career right at this moment?
I would say that if it sounds like too much work to produce more content than anyone else on planet Earth for your market that you're defining, that you have a crappy niche and you don't believe in it and you're not high conviction enough in it, like, you should choose a niche that's so valuable to dominate in a sandbox that's so valuable to get on top of and put your flag in the ground that it doesn't matter if it takes 3, 5, or 10 years to dominate that niche, that once you get on top of that mountain, it's going to be so valuable that you know you're going to get paid out in spades. And if you take that mindset and you do things that are very long-term minded, people around you will see that and they'll either get out of your way or they're going to be ran over by your momentum. And I think that ironically, you get results faster when you do things that are for the very long term, because people see the genuine authenticity that you're in this for the long term. You're adding value, you're genuine, you're authentic, and then just things go better all around.
But before you go, can you just give a couple examples of some of the long-term, like the crazy strategies that people like, because you mentioned in the beginning that these are strategies like no one would even consider if they were going to retire in 7 years. I would just like to hear a couple, because I am a huge believer in long-term thinking, long-term planning, or not planning necessarily, but long-term marketing, and planting seeds that may, take 3 years to develop. But I'd like to hear a couple of those crazy ideas before we wrap up here.
Yeah, some of it is our certification programs. Some of the certifications aren't as profitable as others to run, but we know if we certify them in family offices or capital raising, they're much more likely to come back and be a charter member in the family office club and come to our capital raising workshops, or one day, come back to capitalraising.com when they need to raise capital for their startup or something. So planting those seeds via the certification programs, also just replying back to lots of emails where, I already have my team, I've got an 18-person team and they reply to most emails that come in, but I do try to get back to people and be timely and be helpful and put in the extra time to give them genuine advice when I do have the time to reply, just to plant the seeds, even if they're not a customer and they're in some country we might not ever expand to, just to grow the word of mouth, et cetera. So that'd be another example. And then the final one is writing more than 1 or 2 books. Most people never write even one. And we've published 13 books and we write 1 or 2 more books each year because we keep on identifying these sub niches where nobody's written a book or there's not a good updated book on the topic. And, I could just not write another book the rest of my life and 13 would be fine. But, there's always
an unlucky number though.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to stop at 13, but I don't want to not write it. And then someone else writes and I'm like, oh, I know I should have been the first one to put out a resource on that topic.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for your time. I know you're really busy. This was an honor to have you on our show. Would you consider doing another half hour with us at some point?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm a total marketing geek. So anytime you guys want to have me back on, count me in.
And have you pre-ordered your Avengers Infinity War or Avengers Endgame tickets?
I have not, but my brother's a huge Marvel DC freak. I watched Aquaman and kind of fell asleep. I think a little too much CGI.
I still haven't even seen that one. That one didn't appeal to me, but this one does. This one does.
So, all right, Richard. Well, thank you, and definitely keep in touch with us. We would love to have you back.
We'd love to have you back. Yeah.
Great. Will do. Anytime. Take care.
All right.
And it is, I think it's that time. It's that time for marketing news. What do you got for me, Andre?
Yeah. Well, Facebook has had yet another data breach by the looks of it.
About time.
Yeah, it's been what, 10 minutes?
It's like 10 minutes.
It looks like 540 million records have been breached. This is according to the security firm UpGuard. And they said they did a little bit of research, and there was 2 sets of data from a Mexican media company called Cultura Colectiva, and 146 gigabyte data set with information like Facebook user activity, account names, IDs was found that included more than 450 million records, and including 22,000 passwords apparently used for the app that it was breached. So once again, Facebook has let us down. Thank you. You know.
Have they really let us down at this point? I guess shouldn't this be expected now?
Here, this is another reason that it let me down. I started dabbling in Facebook. I just went on there and I posted the other day because I did my taxes for my business last year and the year before. I got $1,500 back from my business, right? And I made about the same amount of money from my business in the U.S. And, it's $1,500. So individual number 1 had passed the tax break for the wealthy. And I did my taxes this year, and the reports were coming in that people's taxes weren't getting the returns that they had the previous years. So I did my taxes, and I owed $39. And so this was the first year I wasn't getting like over $1,000 refund. And so I posted that on Facebook, and I said, last year and for the past several years, I got $1,500. This year I have to pay $39. Thanks, Republicans. And one of my trolley people that I know, because unlike a lot of people, I do not block or unfriend trolls. People have become trolls on Facebook. And so he writes back and he's like, wow, I love it when people complain about tax loopholes when they're finally closed, or something to that effect. And I said, no, this was theft of my money. This guy passed a tax break that helped the wealthy and didn't give me a tax break because that money went to the wealthy. And
did you have to file in the U.S.?
Yeah, I have to file in the U.S. As long as I have my U.S. passport, I have to file in the U.S. every year.
Interesting.
And I said, no, this is what happened. This is what the tax law said. And I said, and he was like, well, source. And I'm like, what do you mean source? It's in the tax law that just passed, you fucking idiot. So
or it's in the the source is this check or this bill that I'm looking at.
Yeah, read the bill that just passed, and it it's like
that's the bill of the $39 bill. I'm talking about that.
Oh,
bill.
Yeah,
that's the source.
But here's the thing that drives me crazy is like if it's not, there are people out there that if it's not sourced by Fox News or our Russian television or Alex Jones, it's not real, right? And so and they want me to source stuff, and even when I source it, they're going to go, oh well, that's just the liberal media, and it's like, no, it's reality. It's a $39 bill I have to pay before I got back $1,500, and I started engaging with this guy on Facebook, and it was pissing me off because not only was I like showing him these things, and then he was like owning me, right? Because I'm a lib. So I would have to then I found myself wanting to get back online and tell this guy off some more. And I realized I'm getting sucked into this swamp.
That's what they do. That's what trolls do. That's what trolls do.
Yeah. And look, I have no problem paying taxes. I don't. And I think, here in the Netherlands, I pay 40 to 45% tax. I have no problem doing that because my kid goes to a school that I would have to pay several $1,000s in the States for that type of education. Oh, and P.S., I don't have to worry about him getting shot and killed inside of the school. I know there's a lot of people listening to me right now who are probably like, oh, that guy's a lib, I'm going to own him. But let me tell you something. I in this country, people, they look out for one another. I don't have to worry about getting mugged when I walk down the street. The healthcare is amazing, and I pay $350 for a family of 5. So, and guess what? No one loses their health, like their house, because they get cancer. That just doesn't happen here. Everybody is taken care of. So yes, the 45% tax is totally worth it because they have a society where people are decent to one another. And that's the way it is. Although the lady at my work who is now leaving, she did say that she hated the Poles. So whatever that means.
She hated the Poles.
The Poles were moving in and taking over our jobs. It's like in the United States.
The Polish, like the Polish.
Yeah. It's just funny.
Like with the Poles, I don't know.
The Poles. That's what she said. The Poles.
The world, because we don't deal with like the Polish coming into the U.S. like as a threat. So
really,
yeah.
What about the Moroccans? Should we build the wall to keep out the Moroccans? Because that's what they're talking about here. It's like every country has their damn thing, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about it, and I'll get off this rant. But this is why I consider myself liberal. This reason, which is this: every single human mind is a resource, and if you deny that human resource because you think that they're lesser than you, you have lost me. You have lost the argument because during the turn of the century, there was a lot of eugenics that were happening. People really thought that if somebody had some sort of disease, or they were crippled, or couldn't perform in a way that was quote normal, they would euthanize those people, or they would make sure that they never had children. We would have no Stephen Hawkings. We wouldn't have a Peter Dinklage. We wouldn't have a lot of people that contribute to society because of what may seem abnormal to other people, and there are so many people that come into this country and educate themselves. And so what if they go back with that knowledge and help their country? We have enough money in America to fight every war that's ever been fought, but we don't have enough money to educate every single person in the world. I find that a travesty, and I find it to be spiritually bankrupt that this country has those types of morals. So that is the end of my rant. Thank you very much, and have a nice night.
So before we completely get off your rant, I'm just curious. Do you have to pay like double taxes? Then do you have to pay like U.S. taxes and Netherlands taxes? Then, or like how does that work? As an expat or whatever you're considered over there.
Well, having an LLC, I don't really have to pay that many taxes. Most LLCs don't, which is one of the loopholes of American society. But because my company doesn't have enough money to, I'm not making $100 million a year, and because of that, I don't have the resources to move my main office to the Cayman Islands to completely pay zero taxes. I have to pay some taxes. In the Netherlands, I have to pay the 45%, but none of that has to go to America. Any money that I make in America, I have to pay taxes on, but that's becoming less and less these days since I'm working more and more in the Netherlands.
Now, when you get, are you on track to get full citizenship at some point? And then when that happens, will you be like totally free from all that?
No, that's, my son has dual citizenship. I can get dual citizenship if I either marry a Dutch national or I have to give up my my American passport, then I can get a full Dutch passport. But there was a politician here by the name of Geert Wilders, who was basically like this Trump light. He had weird hair and he wanted to ban all the mosques and, burn the Quran and build a wall to keep the Poles and I read
about him. He made an impact even over here in the U.S. He made the news.
Yeah. So Hilt Wilders, who he also has weird things with his hair. I don't know what's going on with that, but he helped pass a law that basically said that you are no longer allowed to have dual citizenship. So if you want Dutch citizenship, you got to get rid of your passport of regular nationality. There are some loopholes, like my son, for instance, has dual citizenship. And at this moment, I think that if I marry a Dutch national, I can get dual citizenship. But who knows what the next few years will bring.
Right on. In other news, Tesla, you ready for this?
Yeah.
They have upgraded their autopilot, and users of the autopilot no longer need to confirm every single lane change. I don't even have a Tesla, and I haven't driven with autopilot, so I don't even know. I didn't even know that this was going on, but apparently up until this point, you could use the autopilot, but you had to confirm lane changes. That is no longer the case. We are 1 inch closer to hands-free driving, and give us, I don't know, what do you think, Otto? It's like 3 years till it becomes like actually like fully allowed, or how long do you think till there actually are driverless cars, consumer riders in driverless cars? How long till that happens?
I would say 15 years.
You think it'd be that long? Because, I mean, the technology is already there for the most part. It's just a matter of, although I did read that there were some hackers that had been able to fool, I think it was a Tesla autopilot into like going into the wrong lane by using like reflective stickers or something. But I mean, is that really like a thing that you're going to be that worried about? I don't know. I mean, I guess it is, because if hackers can do that, then they maybe, somebody's going to do that and get cars to crash into each other. But but we're getting closer. So we're 15 years away. We heard it here from Auto Surgeon, 15 years, driverless cars. You don't need a helmet anymore at that point.
I'll put it to you this way. I don't think either one of our kids are going to be worrying about getting a driver's license.
Yeah, I think that's, well, I mean, actually, yeah. I mean, with the move to get off of gas vehicles coupled with this, the driverless cars, I think you're probably on the right track there.
In other news, Elizabeth Warren, or as I like to call her, Pocahontas, introduced a bill that could hold tech execs responsible for data breaches. Now, this ties into the last story I just had. So the question is, should tech executives be held responsible if there's a massive data breach and your data is spilled onto the dark web?
I think there is some level of circumstances involved in this. Maybe. They probably should be held responsible. Actually, I think they should be held responsible. Yes.
Let me put it this way.
Yeah.
If I took your information, your private information, me, and I put it online, and I put you at risk at getting robbed or getting your identity stolen, you would have a lawsuit against me. You could sue me. Right? Because I put you in danger. So if according to the laws of the United States, a corporation is a person, which it is, and it has free speech rights, then it should be held to the same rules as a person would. I submit that if a organization, a company, knowingly harms individuals or people or community, the business should be put to death. I think that they should break up the business.
Yeah,
I really believe that.
You know what's funny? Zuckerberg a few days ago went on the record saying that maybe Facebook should be regulated by the government, and I want to provide my input on how that should be done. So today, it's an article here. Top House Democrat that's Mark Zuckerberg. Top House Democrat Rep. David Cecilian out of Rhode Island. He said, from my perspective, I think it's a little rich to have Mark Zuckerberg try to give us advice about how Facebook ought to be regulated. The reality is Facebook has demonstrated unequivocally that it is not capable of regulating itself. It has been a bad actor in some very fundamental ways. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
I would say so. And so I with that, I think that what is going to happen is the government is definitely going to regulate social media platforms like Facebook, and I think he's trying to get ahead of it.
He knows it. He knows it's coming.
Yeah. So, but I love it. I love this whole idea of him saying, I think we will, I think the government should, and I think we should tell you how to do it. It's almost like, let's say that there was an investigation of a criminal who had a political position in office. Hypothetically, that high-ranking politician hired somebody to oversee how the investigation was going to be put out to the general public. And then the person that he hired then wrote a summary that cleared him of all charges whatsoever. And then with the guy that hired him, who wrote the thing that he wanted him to write, then used that information to say he was completely innocent. It's kind of like that.
That's a very far-fetched scenario.
Yeah, that would never happen. Who would believe that? I'll tell you this: if it were a novel, no one would buy it. It would be a complete failure because no one would believe it. And that's an actual quote, my friends.
You got to willingly suspend that disbelief at a very, very high level.
Absolutely.
All right. Geek news, and then we're wrapping up. Couple geek stories.
Right here, I got one. Captain Marvel. About to cross $1 billion mark.
Wow, that was quick. That was quick.
Yeah, that was quick. Now I gotta tell you, most commercial movies, I am not like I don't like big like the Fast and the Furious films. You can.
Oh my God, I hate them.
Oh man, they could launch those to Mars next to all of the DC movies, and I would be fine with that. But I gotta say, Marvel has kept me very, very entertained. And
yes, they've done a very good job. Yes, and Disney has had a role in that, but they haven't done so well with Star Wars. But Marvel has done a great job.
Good for you guys. Keep up the good work.
Speaking of Disney and Marvel, a couple stories here. Avengers Endgame is tracking for a $200 to $250 million opening, with the potential that it could even crack $260 million. It also shattered the 24-hour pre-sale orders. I think it was within 3 hours they broke the record for 24 hours of pre-sale orders.
Damn.
So, yeah, it's tracking quite well. And also on the front of Disney, they have announced today that they will continue. Now they've just to reiterate to our listeners that don't know this, they have purchased 20th Century Fox. They now own all the movie rights to everything 20th Century Fox.
To everything in the world, to every movie that's ever been made.
Yeah, including Alien and Planet of the Apes, as well as Avatar. But they've announced today that they will be continuing the Alien franchise and the Planet of the Apes franchise through Disney. So that's happening. That's happening.
Okay, do you want to hear my prediction? This is my prediction.
Yes.
Are you ready for it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready.
The teaser at the end of Endgame is going to tease X-Men.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. It may not have any of the cast members, but it'll tease like mutants or something like that. I do think.
Yeah, just see it, like we'll have something, and then it's going to be like a close up of Xavier's School for the Gifted or something along those lines.
I'm kind of on this. I've been reading some theories on this, and I kind of on the belief system that they are going to end this movie like in an alternate dimension, which would explain why mutants exist all of a sudden. And would free them to use new characters and maybe some of the characters end up in one dimension, some in another. I don't know, but it's something like that. There's going to be some sort of rift in reality that's going to open the door for the X-Men and all these other characters going logically.
On that level, I had a total Mandela effect. For those of you who don't know, the Mandela effect is a known effect where you, for instance, know someone has died. In this case, it's named after Nelson Mandela because there are many, many people that remember the day that Nelson Mandela died in prison. And but that didn't happen. In this reality, he went on to become the president of South Africa. But one of the classic examples is the Berenstain Bears, and some people remember it as the Berenstain Bears. And
no, it's actually the Berenstain Bears. Is the
Berenstain
really
Bears? This is the Berenstain.
Everybody remembers the Berenstain Bears because that's what it was.
Yeah,
I mean, up until the shift in reality. Yeah, but I had a very, very absolute real Mandela effect thing happen to me, like absolutely 100%. And that was, I was reading the news the other day, and Barbara Streisand posted a photo of her with Chris Christopherson, and it was the Star is Born reunion. And I looked at that photo and I was like, no, Chris Christopherson died several years ago. And I remember him dying because I spoke with a friend of mine who was a Chris Christopherson fan. And she was sad that the quote, silver-tongued devil had passed away. And he died. He was, and I was like, yes, he was part of the Highwaymen. He did an album with Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson. He died. I know he died, and apparently in this timeline he has not. So wow. The one that trips me out the most is that the Monopoly guy never had a monocle. I mean, he never had a monocle. Are you kidding me?
Really?
Yeah, he never had a monocle ever. That's not in this reality. Not in this reality. I guess it was Mr. Peanut all along, and I just confused the two. I
can see where that happens. You never see them at the same parties together.
That's true. Yeah, see, it's so true.
I think it's a conspiracy, man. It's a conspiracy, man. Speaking of conspiracies, did you hear about this? Is kind of segue weird geek news, but Alex Jones had his deposition, and he did you hear about this? This was hysterical. Did this ring a bell?
I did. I did hear about this. This is hilarious. Yeah. Yes, I did hear about this.
I know. So Alex Jones had his deposition where he had to talk about to the lawyers about why he said what he said about Sandy Hook, and his answer for that was that he had an element of psychosis. He was suffering from psychosis when he said that. And when pressed, they asked him, well, where did you get your information? And he finally confessed that he got it from 4chan. That's where he got all of his big, like, reptile information, was from fucking 4chan. And for those of you who don't know what 4chan is, it's basically where trolls go to
harass Shia LaBeouf,
circle jerk each other. I mean, it's just basically like a troll haven. So he
basically
goes
where like smart. Like, there's actually pretty well educated trolls there, but they go there to go, troll Shia LaBeouf mainly. Yeah, and then some other people too.
It's basically, if it were a fairy tale land, 4chan would be under the bridge where the troll lives. That would be the place. So anyway, I just found it funny that when really pushed, the only two answers that Alex Jones had was that he was suffering from psychosis when he said it, and he gets his information from 4chan.
No, I read the headline that was like, Alex Jones says he's suffering from a rare form of psychosis, and I'm like, what? This is interesting. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, it was tied to the lawsuit. I'm like, oh, of course he said that.
I was crazy when I said that. I don't know what I'm doing. But buy my supplements. And with that, we end our conspiracy news theory of the week.
Not much of a conspiracy. That's kind of what happened.
It's not. Just kind of funny. We basically took the first half of an amazing show and just blew it to smithereens. We had like a work of art, and we just put it through the fucking paper shredder. I apologize to all of our 7 listeners, man. It's like this escalated quickly, or de-escalated. I don't even know what happened.
Why am I laughing so hard?
Because it's true. It's true. We completely. I think we should just like. We should we don't
this
even
be a separate episode now.
Yeah. Not only is it a separate episode, I don't think anyone should hear this. In fact, if this did get out somewhere along the lines and you're listening to this, I'm really sorry. I'm just really, really sorry. Please don't leave us a bad review.
But Mr. Peanut is not the Monopoly man.
And Chris Christopherson is still alive. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, another fine episode of the Marketing Geeks. This is probably my favorite episode ever. I gotta tell you,
this was good. This was fantastic. I mean, we kicked off this episode with an incredible interview, and it was so awesome in the beginning. It was so good.
You know, so well. we got to do this from now on, where we just have like a clickbait sort of like awesome episode in the beginning, and then we just at the end of it, we're just like throwing rocks at each other, you know, drinking out of the toilet, like
dogs and cats living together,
peeing in the sink, all of it. You know,
I love it.
Yeah.
But you know, I learned something today. I learned that marketing is all about selling stuff to the rich.
That's right. The trick is sell stuff to the rich and only the ones that say yes.
That's right. That's right indeed. Always sell to people that say yes, because then you will feel more confident about yourself. Otherwise,
and your close rate goes up. Your close rate goes way up. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, stay classy.